So let's just compare Snowden and Assange, right? Because Assange just recently got sent back to Australia. Espionage charges were lifted. Like, he's a free man.
Yes.
After fucking
A while.
12 years?
I don't know if it was that. It was a long time.
It was a long time between British prisons and
the embassy.
Yeah, the embassy in Ecuador. Yeah, right. So, and the argument for both is the same, even though the circumstances for both are totally different. Snowden was an American citizen. He was a contractor for a government contracting organization that was working for NSA. So like Booz Allen Hamilton or Raytheon or somebody. So he wasn't a sworn officer, but prior to becoming a contractor, he was a sworn officer. So he's working for NSA on a commercial contract when he comes across this program that he believes is a violation of American rights.
It's called Heartbeat, I think.
I forget the name of the program.
Heartbeat for, we'll come up with it.
Right. But so to whistleblow, he takes the story to a foreign news source, The Guardian, which is a UK news source, and he breaks the story in a foreign news source and then flees to a series of countries that are not, that are American adversaries.
I want to step in for 1 second. And you're correct that he went to like Hong Kong, which, you know, is under the veil of China. I'm with you there. The Russia thing, his plane got down there. Vice President Biden at the time diplomatically ordered his plane down in Russia. So that was not his plan.
Right. But before Hong Kong, he was in what? He was in Ecuador. He was in Cuba. He was
in Cuba?
Maybe not Cuba. Can we track?
Yeah, where
can we track all the places that Snowden essentially traveled in his escape from the United
Hawaii?
States?
When he went from Hawaii to Hong Kong, did Snowden go anywhere in between?
I don't think he went straight to Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong.
I don't think you can you from there? Oh,
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he spent years in South America. It was in like Uruguay or Ecuador. He was somewhere.
So he went.
There it is.
Edward Snowden's
invaded U.S. Go ahead and click on.
Well, no. So all right, you're not. I think you have it a little bit backwards.
Hawaii to Hong Kong.
Yes, your point remains. He was trying to go to Ecuador, and his plane was downed in Moscow, so he never got there. But he was going to a country that maybe has some diplomatic issues with America. Okay.
Correct. So the point is, he was an American citizen who exposed secrets that he had been sworn to keep, and he knew the purpose and intent of the intelligence agency because he was a sworn officer of the federal government before he was a contractor. That exposing whistleblowing national security secrets that are classified at a top secret level, knowingly, when you have been charged to protect those secrets, that is completely different than Julian Assange, who was the editor-in-chief of a website that was accepting secrets from all over the world.
Yes.
He himself being an Australian citizen. And then Chelsea Manning, who is a Army private or sergeant, something like that.
Sounds right.
Low-level Army person, gives those secrets to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks publishes those secrets. And now somehow the United States tries to pursue Assange under the Espionage Act, just like they were pursuing Snowden under the Espionage Act. Completely different cases. Julian Assange, not an American citizen. Edward Snowden, American citizen. Julian Assange, never sworn to protect and keep a secret.
Journalist, yeah.
Right? Edward Snowden swore to protect and keep a secret. Contractually, Assange never said he would hide secrets. Contractually, Edward Snowden said he would. Right? Assange published on his own website. Snowden published on a foreign country's newspaper periodical, right? So these two people are completely different. Julian Assange, I am happy that he has gotten released and he's back home and he is doing what he has always tried to do, which is adding transparency to a world full of secrets.
Well,
whether or not that's being shaped by foreign powers, what else isn't being shaped by foreign powers?
Yeah.
But Edward Snowden, who intentionally violated the trust that was put in him by the American people, by his company, by the government, by the NSA, and then in the process of doing so, undid all the work of hundreds of dedicated NSA architects, programmers, strategists. Like, he not only ruined careers, he also undermined the national security of the United States to highlight a program that had already been deemed legal by a court system that was cleared to get the details of that classified operation. The fact that another court disagreed and said that the previous proceedings were superseded and illegal, that's no different than a criminal court coming to a guilty verdict and then an appeal court coming to a different verdict. It just shows that our court system isn't consistent. It doesn't actually mean that Snowden was right. You see what I'm saying?
All right. So there's a lot there, and you make some really good points. I want to be really fair to that too. So first of all, I think it's big of you to say that about Assange, especially someone coming from your organization where, you know, some of your colleagues kind of tried to whack that guy. So I respect that. But with Snowden, I also see where you're coming from because of the precedent it sets. So I've always looked at this, and if people have heard me say this on the podcast before, I'm sorry, but I got to reiterate this for people who haven't.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
I've always said he was stuck between a shit or a fart because he had two slippery slopes. Let's look at the slippery slope that you're focused on, which I think is an important one. You break your contract. You disclose information that you swore yourself to secrecy to take the job to do in the first place. And you set the precedent that someone else in any chain of command within intelligence who has access to information can now point to you and when they leak something and say, but Snowden leaks, so why can't I? And so maybe, let's say what Snowden leaked was at 100 scale of seriousness, which I would say it was. The next person can be at 99.5. It's still bad, but you see, it can work. It's a slippery slope, works its way down, and eventually people are just leaking whatever the fuck they want. And that's a problem. And this is where, when I look at it from the government perspective, I understand that. I do have an understanding of that. The other slippery slope, though, is the lack of responsibility within the chain of command. Edward Snowden did try to do it the correct way, and it wasn't in like a week. He tried to do it over, I believe it was at least a 2-year period, may have been longer than that. Go to his chain of command and say, guys, we are violating the law. We are violating what has been told that we can do. We are violating the U.S. Constitution. Here is all the proof. Please do something about it. And they always told him to fuck off. And so he was now looking at it like, okay, I can break the chain of command and leak something that is violating the Constitution. I hear your point that like the technology and the processes behind this apply to a lot of other things too. That's a fair point. So they have to rebuild all that. That's a big problem. I agree with that. But he's like, I can do that and trust that like they're going to be able to be creative and rebuild that. Or I can let this keep happening and 10 years from now look up and it's way worse. And maybe you have, you know, worst case scenario, Big Brother in America. And fuck if I know what I would do in that situation. I don't know if anyone does, but I think to have your stance is fair. You can have that opinion. And I may disagree with it a little bit because I may lean on this slippery slope more than you lean on this one. But I think any of us who talk about this situation, regardless of which side we fall on, we got to at least recognize that there was a red pill and a blue pill there. And it wasn't the easiest answer. You think you should answer one way. I think maybe you should answer the other. But like, can you agree that there was something there where there is something wrong happening and he was trying to fix that, even if you think he did it in the wrong way?
I don't believe in right and wrong. You already know that.
Well, yeah.
Right? So Snowden's opinion that what we were doing was wrong was not everyone's opinion, right? There were obviously a whole chain of command of leadership that approved the project. There was a whole confidential, cleared court system that deemed it to be legal. And then there was millions, tens of millions of dollars that went into building the program. All of that thought they were doing the right thing. Edward Snowden thought we were doing the wrong thing. And let me be fair. There were many people working on that program who didn't agree with the program.
Correct.
Many who did not agree with the program. Snowden's 2 years of complaints, or however many years it was, it wasn't that people told him to fuck off. He raised his concern within the chain of command, and he just didn't like the answer that came back, because the chain of command came back and said, "Hey, we ran it up the chain. It's approved. It's legal. We're doing it."
But it wasn't legal.
It was legal.
How was it legal?
Because the court approved it.
But
the cleared court approved it.
But they, and again, now I'm getting off the details because I haven't looked at it in a while. But if I remember correctly, they manipulated what they were actually doing to the, what's it, the FISA court or whatever, to make it look like they were doing it within the bounds of that regulation, but they were not. They were spying on unsuspecting United States citizens, not people who, like you were making the argument, hey, this might be a terrorist. Literally everybody.
It was blanket coverage.
Correct.
Blanket coverage that had a very so it's like a police wiretap, right? When the police, when FBI, when local police, when city police, when they actually tap a line, they can't just listen to the line. They have to choose, like I think it's a 15 or 30-second segment that they can listen to. And only if during that segment something of relevancy happens, then they have a piece of evidence that it's admissible in court.
Yes.
So if there's a 5-minute conversation and they choose the wrong 30 seconds to listen, they don't have any proof. They don't get to keep everything, right? That's what blanket approval means. It means the court is allowing you to collect blanket so that you can create a case off of specific instances that are all defined and it's heavily regulated, right? That's the way it works. The fact that metadata was collected, which isn't even personal information, it's metadata.
Can you define that?
Yeah, so metadata is all of the additional information that's created on the digital side of a digital piece of communication.
All right, that was good Japanese. Let's do English.
So you watch a Netflix show, right? The fact that it's your account under your name with your credit card to your home address, and it's the title of the show, that is private information. The fact that it streamed at 2:00 to a zip code, that's your zip code, and was watched for 7 minutes before it was paused, that's all metadata. Nobody knows that Julian Dory watched fucking Coco for 7 minutes and then took a shit break. Nobody knows that.
Okay.
What they know is that this zip code streamed 7 minutes of this data from Netflix at this time. That's the difference between, and then there's all sorts of other metadata too, right? Which internet service provider carried the actual streaming service, what the bandwidth was, blah, 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 right? All of that's metadata, not personal information. Your cellular phone carries tons of metadata too. It's not just Julian Dory called Danny Jones on August 1st and had an 11-minute conversation about Diet Coke.
Right.
That's personal data. That's encrypted for the most part. But the fact that Sprint supported a call to Verizon for 7 minutes from these two geographic, longitude directions, that's metadata. So the court system said collecting metadata in bulk with an effort to correlate that metadata with known terrorist activity is legal. And then a different court, a civil court, which is not a cleared court, determined later on that the cleared court made the wrong call. Well, guess what happens all the time in an appeal process? One court comes to one decision, a different court comes to a different decision. Different juries, different judges, different districts, different precincts.
That's true.
So does that mean that the person who's found guilty in the first court, but then innocent in the second court, is still guilty? Does that mean that they did the wrong thing if the appeal court found them not guilty?
I see what you're saying.
That's exactly what happened here, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, NSA still had to change their program because the court system did what the court system did. And they were two different court systems. Cleared courts have more access to more information. Civilian courts have less access to cleared information.
Yeah.
It's not really truly apples to apples.
Look, you make the argument in a very diplomatic way. I can't argue that. I think I think we've made the points on that. I really want to hear you and John go at that. John's a way better person to discuss that with you than me for obvious reasons. So
real quick, because I just want to fact check this, Leslie. John Kiriakou has his own podcast, yeah? I'm pretty sure he does.
Does he?
And I'm pretty sure it's sponsored by Russian state media.
Oh, God. All right. That's a whole nother conversation. I knew you were going
there. Just want to fact check it because...
all right. We'll fact check it real quick.
I want that to break on your show because I'm going to be talking about that.
I want you to discuss that with him on that podcast for sure because he's talked about that before and what happened there and everything. I don't know. He has been, I will say this, whether or not this is true, what you said, he has been on those networks and has been paid by those networks. That's not wrong. But hear him out on that.
That's not wrong, meaning that's not inaccurate.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you are accurate.